If you're thinking about building a new home here in Georgia, you're in the right place. In this video, we're going to break down all the costs that are going to be associated with building your new home here in Georgia. My name is Dallas Blanton. I am a sales agent that's worked with SR Homes, going on my third community now. Sold a little bit over $30 million through my career over the last few years. And who am I here with?
I'm Tyler Rucker. I am the lead construction manager over the Metro Atlanta area here at SR Homes. So I've been working with Dallas here for several years now. We're going on, I've been at SR a little over 5 years now, so quite a bit of homes here. And our goal is going to be to break down the cost of building a home here in the beautiful state of Georgia, whether that's in a subdivision like SR is known for, or whether that's on a one-off lot on your own and you want to build your own plan. Our goal is to try and make that as transparent and clear as possible so you have a good understanding when going into building your home.
One of the things to keep in mind when you are buying a new construction home is what some of the hidden costs are. And these are really broken down into two separate categories. Number one are hidden costs that the builder or developer have already paid for that are going to be baked into the cost of that home. So you're really not coming out of pocket for these. These are going to be things like clearing the lots. So if you've got a 3/4 of an acre lot out here in Sterlington and Canton, you're probably looking somewhere between $3,750 and about $5,000 to clear that 3/4 acre lot, get the trees down, get them out, get the stumps out of the ground, and get it ready to build. Another thing that you're going to have that's baked into the cost of your home is going to be the permitting. You have to go through, you have to submit a permit to the county to get their approval to build a new home on a lot. That's probably going to be somewhere $1,500 to $2,500 depending on the jurisdiction. Then there are things that are going to be reflected on your closing disclosure as the buyer that could be considered hidden costs. On top of that, you are going to have closing costs when you buy a new home. So this is going to be somewhere between 2-3% on your new home. So just for a hypothetical, say you're buying a $700,000 or $800,000 home, your closing costs, realistically speaking, are probably going to be somewhere between $14,000 and $21,000 on the $700,000 home and $16,000 and $24,000 on the $800,000 home. So these are just costs to keep in mind that you are going to have to come up out of pocket in addition to your down payment on the home. Now, another option, especially when you work with a semi-custom home builder like us here at SR Homes, you're going to have your design center upgrades. Now, frequently when you go out and you select all these upgrades for the home, there is going to be a deposit that is required in order to get those selections loaded in and have those go into the new home. Here at SR, typically we charge 20% in terms of the deposit on your upgrades at the design center. However, you can go to builders that are exponentially higher than that, and frankly, I haven't seen many that are lower than that. So those are just some additional costs that you're going to have to keep in mind while you're buying the home. Your lot, generally speaking, here in suburban Atlanta is probably going to be about 25-30% of the base price of the home. And what all that includes is everything that it takes to turn a raw piece of dirt into what you see here. This neighborhood where there's a road in, there's sidewalk in, you have the entry monument, you have all of the lots are padded, and this is going to include getting all those lots ready to be padded. And the sky is the limit with how much money you can spend on grading and dealing with topography issues, especially if you run into an issue like having rock in the neighborhood, where now you actually have to pay to get the rock blown out of the ground so that you can go forward and finish developing that lot.
So let's talk about one of the biggest parts in building your home here in the state of Georgia. That's going to be your land cost. So your land cost is going to start when you really are putting together your budget for your home that you want to build. What kind of land are you going to be looking at? Are you going to be looking in a subdivision that's with a predetermined builder? They're going to have what we call lot premiums. So what that's going to do is that's going to be a set price that that builder puts in your contract for that lot in that subdivision when you're picking out that lot. So say you've got a subdivision of 29 lots, they're going to have several different premiums in that subdivision based on where that lot is located. So if you've got a beautiful big cul-de-sac lot, that lot's going to have a higher premium than some of the lots in the front of the subdivision that may be a little bit smaller. So that's one thing to consider when you're looking at subdivision lots with builders, is what is their lot premium. If you're in a more private setting and you're going to do your own lot, your budget can be whatever you want it to be. So you can go out, find a real estate agent that can help you find your land in the area that you're looking for here in the state of Georgia. So here we're in North Georgia, so our land is anywhere from urban kind of towards Atlanta, where the prices get a lot more expensive expensive. You're looking at anywhere from $50,000 an acre up into the hundreds of thousands per acre. And then you can go into rural parts of North Georgia where your land's going to be a little bit cheaper. Up in the mountain counties, you can get land from anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000 an acre, and of such, depending on how big a piece of land you're looking at. So that's a big thing to consider when you're talking about building your home in the state of Georgia, is how much you're going to be paying for your land. When looking at your land too, there's a lot of things you need to take into consideration. Are you going to be on city water, city sewer? Are you going to have to drill a well? Are you going to be on septic? Things of such, because that's going to play a big factor in your land costs once you start the development of your land. Unless you're in a builder subdivision that has already done the development, that is all included in your lot premiums. So that's a big part of building your house here in the state of Georgia, is what your land is going to cost and what all work needs to be done to your land before you start the construction process. So after subdivision lots, if it's not something you really desire for your family, you can go into private land, so that you're going to get a real estate agent, or you're going to go out and buy your land on your own. You're going to find a lot in the area that you desire. There's some big things to take into consideration when you're picking your own lot, however. Does that lot require septic instead of city sewer? Are you going to have to drill a well instead of city water? Those are all costs that you need to factor into your lot when you're picking out a lot in the state of Georgia. So your rural areas, your cost per acre is going to be a lot lower than the cost of the metro Atlanta area, your more urban area, and those costs are going to be a little bit higher.
Another thing to keep in mind when you're building a new construction home, especially important if you are not just buying a spec home or a home that's already ready to move into, but you're building from the ground up, is what your deposits are going to be. So generally speaking, you're going to be putting somewhere between 10 and 20% of your home down into an escrow account before you even start building the new home. However, here at SR, we do things a little bit differently. So you're going to put 5% of your base price down when you start the home. Then you are going to put 20% of your options down. So say you select $20,000 worth of upgrades at the design center, you would then put $4,000 down in terms of a deposit. And then once you hit drywall, then you would be due the other 5% of the base price of your home. So all in all, you're going to be at about 10% of your base price as it relates to your deposits, and then 20% of your options. And that's unless you do something crazy like you're, requesting some sort of bump out that's not technically an offered option, but it's more of a structural change. That might be 100% deposit. But rule of thumb is going to be 10% down in terms of a deposit, and then 20% on your options. And then all of these deposits are actually going to get credited back to you at the closing table, which brings me to the third set of hidden costs on a new construction home. The third and final set of hidden costs when you're buying or building a home here in Georgia are going to be your closing costs and everything around your closing. You're going to be paying a few $1,000s just for the services of the closing attorney. You're going to be paying even more than a few $1,000s, and probably upwards of $3,000 or $4,000, depending on the lender you use in terms of a mortgage origination fee. You can buy points down, which is a way of prepaying interest on your mortgage. So you can give them anywhere from $4,000 or $5,000 all the way up to $20,000 or more in order to prepay that interest and assure that you have a lower interest rate throughout the life of your mortgage. And all this can amount to somewhere between 2 and 3% of your purchase price when you're buying a new home. So for example, you're buying an $800,000 home, very similar to like what we have out here in Sterlington and Canton, somewhere between 2 and 3%. So you're going to be looking anywhere between $16,000 and $24,000 all in for your closing costs. And also you're going to be credited back for all those deposits that you had made to the builder throughout the construction process. So that 10% of the base price of your home, as well as the 20% in terms of your design options, will all get credited back to you at this point. And that's when the lender, a week or so prior to closing, will give you the final closing numbers and say, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Jones or Smith or whatever generic last name you would like, this is how much money you need to wire to us so that you're able to close on your home at the closing table, which is what's called your cash to close. So what all does this mean for you as the end buyer of a new construction home? Well, you are going to be paying a little bit of a premium for a new home versus a resale home. In the markets that we're building in right now in the North Atlanta area, it's about $15 to $40 more a foot, depending on the area. So in Cherokee County, for example, the average on a new home is about $228 a foot. And in Forsyth County, the average is about $248 per foot for a new home. You can pull somewhere between, again, $15 and $40 off of that for the price of a resale home. Now, why is that? Really, it's for three distinct reasons. Number one, it is a new home and there's a premium for new, just the same as if you were going out and you were going to be buying a new car. You're going to pay more for the new car than you are if you buy a used car. Again, you have more updated materials. You're getting the latest and greatest in terms of construction when you buy a new home, and so that demands a bit of a premium. Number two, you are going to have a warranty associated with that home that you buy. So for us here at SR, you have the warranty really split into three parts. You have a 1-year workmanship or craftsmanship warranty. Then you have a 2-year warranty on everything kind of behind the walls, like your mechanical, your electrical, your plumbing. And then also you're going to have a 10-year structural warranty. So that's the second component. The third component is you are going to be getting builder incentives when you buy a new construction home. What do these incentives do for you? Typically, they're used in the way of buying down a rate, covering closing costs. Maybe it's a design center credit. Some builders will even give away a half price basement or a free basement. It really just depends on what the offerings are. Here at SR in the North Atlanta area right now, we have two separate incentives. One for our Yellowstone Farms community, which is $20,000, $10,000 to spend your way, and then $10,000 to spend in terms of a rate buy down or closing costs. And then in our Canton community in Sterlington, it is a $30,000 incentive currently. And that's split $15,000 and $15,000. So $15,000 your way, and then $15,000 can go towards your rate buy down or your closing costs. So when you combine all three of these things together, you do get a bit of a premium on a new construction home. However, you do spend a little bit more in the short term to have much more security in the long term through things like buying your rate down and paying less on your mortgage for the next 30 years. And also that warranty goes a long, long way, and you're saving money in the long run in terms of how efficient that home is with the energy in the home. So let's talk about how you're going to be financing your new home. This is going to vary a little bit on whether or not you do a custom build or a semi-custom build, or you just buy a spec home. So if you're going the custom route, you're typically going to use what's called a construction to perm loan. That is, unless you want to come out of pocket and pay everything cash, in which case, great on you. If you're using the construction to perm loan, this is going to start off as an interest-only loan where you're not paying any principal on that loan amount. And typically, this will be paid in about 10 draws to the builder as they move through the construction process of your custom home. Now, if you're doing a pre-sale home in a community, it's not a custom build, the loan process is going to be a little bit different. You are just going to have a conventional loan typically. However, you are eligible to use an FHA loan. That's just going to depend on you and your situation, your circumstances, and a conversation that you have with your lender or with one of the builder's preferred lenders. But the loan for a pre-sale home is not going to kick in until the closing date. And then all of those deposits that you made that we talked about earlier, those are going to be credited back to you at closing, and then the lender will give you your total cash to close. You will close on that home, and then after that is when your payments will start, and that'll be, again, a conventional or an FHA loan, just going from the point of closing. There won't be any interest-only period, and you won't be having to make those builder draws like you would be having to make on a custom home.
Let's talk ways to save money while building your home. So you want to be able to save a couple dollars while building your home, but you don't want to jeopardize your home build. So there's a lot of areas you're going to want to spend that extra money, but there are also a lot of areas you can cut costs to save you on your initial build. So several areas I recommend you do not cut costs. The big one's going to be your foundation. That's actually what is the base of your home, and that's where your home is going to sit. So I do not recommend cutting your costs there. I'd find a good contractor, good concrete supplier. Do not cut your corners there. Next one would be your framing, the shell of your home that everything starts with. You do not want to cut costs on your framing material or your framing labor, as anything behind the walls can cause a lot of issues down the road. So there's a lot of ways you can cut costs outside of those areas. So you can start by using a friend, for example. If you have a good licensed contractor that's a friend of yours, you may be able to run a deal with them and use them to get some of your mechanicals and things of such. If you know a plumber or an HVAC guy, you can save costs that way. You can also save costs by doing a lot of stuff in-house if you are your self-contractor. So if you're building a custom home and you are the owner and you are the contractor, there's a lot of stuff, if you're willing to put in the time, you can do yourself, like site cleanup. You can do a lot of certain trim work yourself if you are a handy DIY person. If you are not a DIY person, I would recommend working with your designer or whoever you're using to design your home to pick finishes that can easily be swapped out down the road to save you some money. A good example would be plumbing fixtures. If you don't want to go all out on your plumbing fixtures, those are easy to change down the road. Same thing with cabinet hardware. As long as you pick the pull versus the handle, those are easy to swap out down the road and you're not having to drill new holes and things of such. Light fixtures, that is another area where you can go builder grade, base standard, and swap out easily down the road to save you some cost when building your home. There's a lot of different areas you can cut costs when building your home to try and save you money, but there is also several areas where you do not want to cut costs and jeopardize the value or the safety of your home. So stay tuned, we'll get you some more of that information. So if you're interested in seeing what SR has to offer, you can click the link below. We have 2 active Metro Atlanta communities. We have Sterlington over in Canton and Yellowstone Farms in Forsyth County. And then we have 2 Athens, Oconee area subdivisions. We have Somerville in Athens, 10 minutes from the UGA campus. And then we have Stonewood over in the Oconee area. So make sure to check us out and let us know what you think.
Hit that subscribe button as well. We're going to be putting out a lot more content just like this, breaking down everything you need to know for building custom and semi-custom homes here in Georgia. Thanks for watching.